We're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Lions Lounge Lockdown, Episode 6. The man who captained Millwall in the FA Cup final. It don't get much better than that. Matty Lawrence, thanks for joining us, mate.
Hey, good afternoon here. Good evening to you guys back in the UK. Yeah, and thanks very much for inviting me on the show. It's a privilege to eventually when we start, reminisce and talk about some good times I had at Millwall. I was at Millwall from 2000 to 2006, and yeah, we had
Brilliant,
some
mate. Looking forward
good times on and off the pitch.
You're in New York these days, is that right?
I am, yeah. You can't see from the backdrop. We had to close down the blinds because of my lighting issues. But yeah, I'm in New York. I'm on the Upper East Side in Manhattan. So to my east, I've got the East River. To my west, I have Central Park. So yeah, I'm in a pretty nice part of the world. Apart from, as we chatted about off camera beforehand, apart from the last 8 weeks when I've been sat within these four walls, as I know you guys have back home as well. It's strange times in the world right now, Dan.
It is, mate. It's worked out. It's not a good situation, but for me to pin a few of you lot down, you've got the time to reminisce. It's the boys seem to have enjoyed it. They've come on so far, and hopefully you will as well. They've said a few of me. It's a little bit like therapy for them.
Yeah, luckily I haven't got to pay you $400 for the privilege of the therapy session, though. So yeah,
invoices in the post, mate. So you started your Millwall career 2000 to 2006, 228 appearances. Unfortunately, no goals, but you captained us at the FA Cup final, so don't get no better than that. Yeah. Signed by Macca and Rhino. So that must have been one of their last sort of acts as managers, almost.
I think so. And obviously, Macca and Rhino were the managers at the time. But I think lots of us remember people like Paul Eiffel and Tim Cahill and other guys who've been on the show will remember Bob Pearson, who behind the scenes, I think, initiated an awful lot of signings, whether it be as pros or academy players. So really all of my, from what I can remember, all of my conversations before I officially signed were with Bob Pearson. So I don't want to say I wasn't a Macca and Rhino signing. I don't want to be defamatory to them, but I felt that it was really Bob Pearson was the person who got to sort of know me as not only as a player, but also as a person. When I turned up and signed, he reeled off so much. Like I wasn't obviously a £20 million signing. It wasn't a massive amount of money, but he'd done an awful lot of background work. Like he knew where my kids went to school. He knew who I was married to. He knew where I lived. He knew I'd been to university. He'd done, and I think that's why, as we'll talk about later, why Millwall had such a good bunch of not only players but lads and people, human beings during that period, because there was not a signing that was just like a willy-nilly, just there's 500 grand, let's go and get that guy because he scored 40 goals. It was, let's make sure we check that they're good people as well. So I know Bob Pearson did that, and I think he has to take a lot of credit for the squad that was built up around that time.
Yeah, spot on. A lot of the boys have said that top to bottom, the club was just, everyone was spot on, not just the players, the entire staff. From the canteen ladies right through to the scouts, it was just a good time at the club, and it worked well. You were signed for £200,000 from Wickham.
Yeah.
I remember you, no disrespect, because as you started, I remember you being a right back that liked to play into the channels. But you developed into a brilliant centre-back and captain. But checking your Wikipedia before we came on air, because at Wickham it said you come to Millwall and you then went to right back. You wasn't a right back to start with, it said.
No, I played right back at Wickham a little bit. When I first joined Wickham from here in the States, I was at university here in the States and went back and played for Wickham. I joined as an attacking midfielder, if you can believe that. And when I was on trial there, I played a reserve game for Wickham, scored one and set one up, and that's when I joined. And initially there, I played in the middle of midfield. I remember a game at Wickham. This is how old I am. I played in the middle of midfield for Wickham against Luton alongside Ray Wilkins. That's how old I am, and that's how careers overlap. So it's strange when Ray obviously came to Millwall as a coach when I'd been, as he said, I'd been his legs in the middle of midfield. But yeah, Wickham, I kind of progressed from centre midfield, and then Alan Smith he moved me to right back, and I became a right back at Wycombe. And then under Laurie Sanchez, he liked me more sort of a wing back slash, I guess more of the modern day fullback that gets forward a lot. It
likes the bomb on, yeah.
It isn't just about defending. So yeah, I think I joined as a right back predominantly, but yeah, when I moved to centre half, that's certainly, I think, when people saw the best of me, and when I guess personally my career really prospered as well.
Yeah, you started out at right back under Rhino and McCleary. I said they wasn't there long, and then a change comes in. Mark McGee. Is that difficult for a player to? I know you said Bob Pearson played a big part. You know, you get signed for a club on the understanding that these two are in charge, and then all of a sudden they're out the door. Mark McGee comes in. How was that transition for you? How did you cope with that as a player?
I think as players you just get used to it. Unfortunately, you know, in the world of football, managers come and go all the time. I think, which is why it was important at Millwall that they had somebody like Bob Pearson, who was there for quite a long time under numerous managers to build a squad. It was a shame that Rhino and Macca left, but you get used to that. And yeah, I enjoyed my time with Mark McGee. We had a falling out a little bit, but I enjoyed working with him, and I think we had a very good team at the time, which helps. If you're winning games of football, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but if you're winning games, you don't care who the manager is. The fans don't care who the manager is. They want to see your team win. So it can be a lump of wood, can be manager if you want it. It doesn't matter. You just want to win as a player.
That winning formula, yeah.
Yeah.
Your Millwall debut, do you remember that?
Yeah, I do, because it was away at Wrexham, and the morning of, I drove to the training ground and met Bob Pearson and met a few people behind the scenes. So yeah, so I drove from Sussex up to the training ground at Downham, where did all the routine signs the forms and the win bonus sheet and all of that stuff. I think I did a few more final bits of my medical. And this, bearing in mind, this is the morning of a game. So I've driven from Sussex to Downham, which is like an hour, did all the paperwork, which was probably another 2 hours, then jumped in the car with, I think it was Bob Pearson and Jeff Burnage, and drove from Downham to Wrexham, which I'm guessing is probably like 3-4 hours. So that's 4 or 5 hours of travelling I've done. Get to the team hotel where the lads have obviously been overnight. They've had a sleep in the afternoon, had a pre-match meal. I turn up there absolutely fucked, obviously, because I've been driving for 5 hours and just, I guess, meeting the players for the first time, literally shaking hands in a Marriott hotel in Wrexham or something, not knowing anybody's name, and yeah, playing 90 minutes with a bunch of guys that I had no idea who they were, and they didn't have any idea who I was. So it certainly was. It wasn't the best of starts in terms of my own performance, but I don't think anybody can expect to play a decent game of football when they don't know the names of their 10 teammates and they've been in the car for 5 hours before they played. So I think I woke up at probably 6 or 7 in the morning with no sleep, and then played a game at 7:45 p.m. in Wrexham. Yeah, then probably got home about 4 a.m. back in Sussex. So yeah, it was a start of. I loved my time at Millwall. I genuinely did. Start of a great career for me personally at Millwall. But yeah, it was quite an auspicious start. I'm quite happy to forget about the 90 minutes. I think we drew 1-1. I think we equalised late on. So yeah, technically it went okay. But yeah, certainly
mixed emotions.
Yeah, performance-wise, it wasn't one of my best. Let's put it that way.
We've obviously interviewed some people from that team that you played with. A lot of jokers in that pack. Yes. A lot of people got a lot to say. What was your first impressions on meeting those players? Maybe you might not have got so much time at Wrexham, but over the next week or so at the training ground, what was your first impressions of people? And
yeah, certainly at Wrexham, I was just happy if I knew anybody's name. But as you say, over the coming days and weeks, it became blatantly apparent that I'd been put into a very good dressing room, a very good squad, obviously of players, but I think you're used to when you're at clubs like whether it be Millwall or Fulham or Wycombe or wherever, that you're with some good players. it became apparent straight away that I was in with a good bunch of people as well, which anybody who performs any job, whatever it is, anywhere around the world, you want to be working with people that you can get on with and who are funny fuckers as well. So when you've got people like, you know, Neil Harris and Tony Warner and Joe Dolan and the list goes on and on of just funny people, good people you don't mind, you know, going to play a game of pool with or have a beer with or sit around the dinner table with, as we did in many hotels around the country over my 6 years at Millwall. Yeah, they're just a really good bunch of people. And as you said earlier, Dan, that's not just the players, it's everyone. Yeah. Management, coaching staff, canteen ladies, the groundsman down at the Den, you know, the kit man, just everything, the physios. I think a lot of credit has to go to everybody behind the scenes for just bringing together a good bunch of people. Even down to, you know, Theo was chairman. It just was, for me, it felt like a good time to be at Millwall.
What was he like, Theo?
Theo was good. I'm not sure we had a great relationship. Like, I never went out for a beer with him. I don't mean that in a bad way. We just, he was the chairman, and not that he was aloof or anything like that, but he's kind of the figurehead. And when you get to know him and you read about his background, you know that he's an incredibly successful man. So I don't want to say I was wary of him or anything like that, but I was.
Yeah, he holds a bit of slack. You're like, oh, he's the main man.
Exactly. He's the man who has the money, who has the purse strings. He's the man who writes the check at the end of each month. So, yeah, fully respectful, but it never felt like there would be a relationship of like where you're going out for a beer or anything like that, which I guess is almost rightly so, the same as the management. You don't want to be like boozing and, you know, dropping your trousers on a Saturday night, flipping, you know, in the pub in Wetherspoons or whatever in Bromley, where it's the manager and the chairman over there. It's fine when the players are around and stuff, you know. So, Theo, I think Theo has to take so much credit for what he did at Millwall, and the fact he brought the club back from, I don't remember the ins and outs, whether it's the brink of administration or the brink of bankruptcy. I know he bought the club for whatever, a pound, I think, but transformed them into, as we've said, the side that got promotions and got to an FA Cup final. So obviously a large part of it's down to the players, but it's also down to Theo and his staff for bringing those players in. Well, I came in the February, so the first season we didn't get promoted. I think the February to May, I think we got into the playoffs that year.
And, of course, we lost to Wigan.
Yeah, lost to Wigan in the playoffs. And not that it's about Millwall, but I fully remember Laurie Sanchez was my manager at Wickham. He was the one who called me up and said, Millwall are going to buy you. And he said, it will be a great move for you because Millwall are going places. They've got a great bunch of young players, a really good squad. He said, hopefully you won't get promoted this season, he said. But the following season, you guys will definitely get promoted. He says, you're too good to not get promoted. Which is, you know, from an opposition manager, Laurie Sanchez, manager of me at Wickham at the time, got it totally spot on. Not that we didn't want to beat Wigan, obviously, but I'll always remember that. He told me I was going to a team that would get promoted. And that's part of the reason I came to Millwall, because of how much he spoke up for, you know, the management team, the chair and the players there. So, yeah, exactly what he said came true. So, yeah, we lost to Wigan in the playoffs. Yes, that was incredibly unhappy part of my first season at Millwall. But, yeah, the next season, I think you don't want to be arrogant. You don't want to believe that you're going to get promoted before you had. But I think we all had the belief that we had a side that was good enough to get promoted. And, yeah, that season was fantastic. And, yeah, Neil Harris has never forgiven me for winning Player of the Year that year. Every time I see him, he says, I scored fucking 35 goals in that. He didn't score a single goal. He's like, you get Player of the Year. So, yeah, I dedicate that Player of the Year award to Neil Harris and his whatever, 28, 32 goals, however many he scored. Yeah, a lot of it was down to him, but I'm happy to take the Player of the Season award from him.
Yeah, but you've got actually thinking about that, you know, one to win the supporters as well, because they were in our bunch to win over, but to win to win the Player of the Season from right back over Millwall's all-time top goal scorer who scored that many goals. You must have had a very, very good season. Must have been sensational.
It was a great season as a whole, but yeah, I had a good season personally, and obviously we're winning loads of games. We got promoted, so it was enjoyable. But just the whole season was enjoyable. There was a good, camaraderie from day to day at the training ground. And as I say, I think we genuinely we didn't want to get over arrogant or ahead of ourselves, but there was a real belief that we were going to get promoted, which is what any good side has. So yeah, So personally it was great. I still apologise to this day to Neil Harris for that. I must admit, he's somebody I speak to. Obviously, I'm here in New York, so I don't see him for beers and things like that. But I speak to him a fair bit on text, so as I do a number of the other players as well. So yeah, great season, and hopefully the supporters, enjoyed it as well as I'm sure they did. It was just a wonderful season.
Lovely. We've heard some very good some dressing room stories. I won't lie, you was involved in a few of them. Paul Ifill was a good friend of yours. Is that right? Tony Warner said he used to call you the Brighton Bombers.
Yeah, exactly. So as I said, I live down in Sussex. So Paul was my driving partner. So yeah, obviously I met all the lads up in Wrexham for that first game. Then we got back to Downham, I guess, where our cars were. And Ives jumped in with me. I think at the time Ives couldn't drive. So I was basically signed as Paul Ifill's chauffeur. That was literally the only reason I was signed. So we jumped in. I had a crappy old Punto at the time. Jumped in my Punto. I remember this. It's like 2-3 in the morning. I'd been up for virtually 24 hours straight. And yeah, I chauffeured Ives to, I think to his girlfriend's doorstep in Hassocks, which is like a couple of villages over from where I lived in Burgess Hill. So yeah. 24 hours later, after signing for Millwall for 200 grand, I'm now known as Paul Ifill's chauffeur, and yeah, dropping him off at home. I've been waiting for 24 hours, yeah.
Oh dear. Another thing I said about the dressing room, you was quite. Would it be fair to say you and Nevercott have had a few mentions? You was quite quirky in your approach to pre-match rituals. So should we say it like that?
Quirky, superstitious, anally retentive, yeah. Obsessive compulsive, yeah, whatever you want to say. At least Nethers, I think, Nethers just used to make himself throw up. He'd always do a few little sprint routines, but I had numerous. You basically had to get out a set square virtually to get my towel in place and bottles of water, make sure they were set up right. Yeah, I don't know how it started, but it just progressed. By the end of my career, I used to turn up at half time for the game because I was still in the dressing room setting everything out. Yeah, I was obsessive compulsive, and of course we used to set the shirt or the kit man would set the shirts out. Obviously 1, 2, 3, 4. Tony Warner's number 1, I'm number 2, and as you know, Tony's the classroom, prankster, so to speak. So I'd go off to the toilet, I'd come back and I'd have bottles of water over one side, my towel would be somewhere else, and I'd have to get them back and put them all in place. So yeah, it was any fans who remember me not turning up till 10, 20 minutes into the game, that was in the dressing room, putting everything back in place. So yeah, Tony Warner used to love doing that.
Did the other players not say, Tone, don't mess with his head, he's on our side? Do you know what I mean? Don't get to the other players.
It was quite. Got their issues. He didn't do it too much, but again, when you're winning games and you're all in it together, it's fine. Yeah, look, if we were staring relegation in the face, I don't think he'd have done it. But I think we would. Yeah. The togetherness was so great that it kind of bothered me at the time, but as in just in that second where I had to rejig all of my little bottles and boots and shin pads and all of that. But yeah, at the time it was annoying, but yeah, it's funny looking back. And Tony's another one of those guys who just obviously a fantastic player, great goalkeeper, but just a wonderful person to be around as well.
You said the camaraderie was so good that we got promoted. We almost went back to back the following season, first year back in the champ. You started out that season, and you sustained a concussion. Is that right?
Yeah, I had a couple of concussions, which set me back a little while. We also had a nutritionist. This is where it all went wrong for me at the beginning of the season. In pre-season, a nutritionist came into the club, and I used to eat a lot of jelly babies and drink a lot of orange squash. So like my sugar intake was massive, but my metabolism still is now is really high. So my metabolism could handle it. The nutritionist came in. And as obsessive compulsive as I am, he told me to cut out the sweets, cut out the orange squash, just drink water, don't drink these sweets. So over time, my body just wore down during pre-season, and I was just getting weaker and weaker and weaker to the point of one pre-season game. Again, I was chauffeuring Ifill'S into the game, and I pretty much passed out at the wheel. I'd, just had such a my body had pretty much shut down, and it took an awfully long while for anybody to realise what happened until I got back to, upping my sugar intake and levelling things out. So I had that at the pre-season, and then, a couple of concussions. So I think the first 2 or 3 months of the season, I wasn't really in the side. So I had like the euphoria of the promotion from the season before, looking forward to playing in the championship, and it took a while for me really to get back into the side. So it wasn't really.
It wasn't like a bang on the head or something. It was just genuinely you needed your jelly babies.
It was genuinely I needed my sugar intake, and I had taken the nutritionist far too literally, and followed every single one of his guidelines. And because again, Millwall didn't have masses of money, I think. When you bring a nutritionist in, you should be doing blood tests. You should be taking everybody as an individual, not the squad as a whole, and treating everybody as the same person. So I suffered because of that, but look, no ill will to anybody. But it took me a while to get back into the side, which was a shame for me. But again, as you say, that season in the championship, we just had that winning mentality. It's same as anything. You get used to winning, you don't know how to lose almost. You forget how to lose, and we, I don't want to say quite took the championship by storm, but we weren't overawed by anybody. And we still have a bunch of very, very good young players, and we were incredibly unfortunate, I think, not to get promoted once again, as you say.
Yeah. Which, going back to that story, sorry, Joe Dolan actually, I don't know if you saw it, Joe Dolan actually told the story, said he found you slumped against the door.
Yeah.
The geezer wouldn't let me drink no orange, but obviously that was why.
Yeah, I don't. Literally, it took a long while for people to realise. I think that was, I don't want to say part of the falling out that Mark McGee had, but they genuinely thought that I was disinterested. I was getting lightheaded, and I just get, as pre-season wore on, you should be getting stronger and stronger physically and mentally. I was just getting weaker and weaker. So it was it wasn't a great 2 or 3 months for me, and until people worked out what it was. I was having heart palpitations. I went and saw the best heart surgeon in London. I had, all the dye shot through my, whatever it will be, veins and muscles around my heart to check that, I wasn't having a heart attack and stuff like that. So genuinely it was although it sounds funny now that I wasn't eating jelly babies and gave myself basically a heart attack. But at the time, it's scary. And that's why I had 2 or 3 months of a tough time, I guess, personally, because same as anybody doing any job, you want to actually be doing your job. I was sat around the dressing room or the treatment room twiddling my thumbs. So it wasn't a good.
It's actually it stemmed from, although a club had your best interests at heart, it's actually stemmed from getting a nutritionist in.
Yeah. Put
you on the sidelines. So
again,
a few quid to get you have all the blood tests and things as well.
Exactly. Look, it's water under the bridge. No ill will, but as I say, that's what happens when you I don't want to say scrimp and save, but obviously we're all different. We all have different body types, and everybody should be eating different diets. You don't treat everybody as the same person. But let's go on to the football anyway. Forget having a heart attack at 25. I'm joking. I didn't have a heart attack. It's fine. I'm passed out on the M25.
Oh, was that what we have heard that story as well? But obviously that's what that was. Jesus Christ. So anyway, you get back into the team. We go for promotion. We lose in the playoffs to Birmingham. Do you remember the more painful memories, mate. Sorry, losing to Birmingham.
Yeah, throughout my career, I don't think I won a playoff game. I lost a playoff game, two obviously playoffs with Millwall. I think I lost a playoff with Palace, and I lost a playoff with Fulham as well. So I've been in 4 playoffs and not even and made it to Wembley. So I guess I'm the bad omen there. But yeah, the Birmingham game. Obviously, what a lot of people remember is what happened at the Den or outside the Den.
Yeah.
After that Birmingham game. The game itself, I don't remember masses about it. I think did Stern John equalise in the last minute or something to make it on the way?
It was 1-1 at their ground, and it went back to ours, 0-0 second leg, 0-0 full time, extra time. Stern John scores in the last minute of extra time to win it for him.
Yeah, I've probably erased that from my memory. I knew Stern John had scored. I think we thought we were the better team. And I think we thought that, being 1-1 away at Birmingham, we were pretty happy with that. Yeah, so that was really tough to take because we'd had such a good season. Obviously, the previous season we got promoted. As I said, I don't remember huge amounts about the game. I just remember, being sat in the dressing room after the game. And yeah, just being absolutely demoralised. All of us being demoralised. All of us thinking we were good enough to at least get to Wembley. I think, did Hull get promoted that season? I can't remember who got promoted.
I don't think it was Birmingham, put it that way.
Let's forget that. Yeah, maybe it was Watford. Anyway, obviously we all sat in the dressing room after the game, probably for nigh on like an hour, just incredibly upset and inconsolable, really. And then you start hearing about what's going on outside as well. And unfortunately, almost then you forget about what's gone on the pitch and you just hope that everybody's okay outside. I know that an awful lot of the players, myself included, are then phoning, wives and family members to check that they're okay. And it became a story, obviously in the newspapers, it became a story about what happened off the pitch rather than on it. So, yeah, of course, it was terrible to lose the game, and then the focus changes in the dressing room to a lot of the guys worrying about friends and family, and it was tough to take on all levels. At
this point, you're still right back. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
You didn't move to centre back until Mark McGee left the club.
Yeah, I came in as a centre half, and Wisey was the one who moved me from right back to centre half. And as so often is the case, I benefited from somebody else's misfortune. I think Paul Robinson damaged his knee seriously. He'd been playing fantastically well as a great young player, and what a great career he had going on. But yeah, he got injured, and Dennis moved me to right centre half. And yes, I'd had a good career at Millwall up to that point, but then I think my career really sort of, certainly personally, jettisoned and moved on to another level at centre half. Dennis had always seen me as a centre half, as he told me, whether that's after the fact, and he was trying to big me up, saying, "Oh yeah, there's no centre half. We're a bit short, so play there." But yeah, I just grew into that role, and obviously playing alongside the likes of Daichi and Nethers, and then latterly Darren Ward.
Beckham, yeah, I'm going to ask you about him in a bit, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't fail to succeed almost playing alongside Nethers and Daichi, obviously being very good, experienced players and good talkers as well. They made my game, they accentuated my game, made it an awful lot easier. And then Warner behind, or Andy Marshall behind, very experienced, great talkers as well. And then I guess to right back, the likes of Kevin Muscat and people like that. So yeah, fitting into that back four in a new
from the best
became very, very easy. Yeah.
So this is a bit of a funny one, because obviously Mark McGee didn't sign you. You said you played under McGee, it was fine with McGee. But before Mark McGee left the club and Dennis Wise did take over, you spent a spell out of the team.
Yeah.
You'd fallen out with Mark McGee, or so we're led to believe. So.
Yeah, I can't remember like having a falling out, as in an argument falling out. I just think he, as I described, I think he lost his faith in me more as a person when he thought. I think they thought I was tossing off pre-season when I said I was just becoming weaker and weaker.
Right. Okay.
Then I suffered a concussion. I think he was doubting my mentality and strength of personality rather than footballing ability. Obviously, Glenn Johnson came to the club on loan from West Ham as well. Lucas Neal was there as a right back, and look, if I can't get into the team because you've got Lucas Neal and Glenn Johnson, it's not too big a deal. You've got two very good Premier League footballers. Obviously, Glenn went on to become a very good Premier League footballer there. So I don't, as I said at the time, I don't have any ill will against Mark McGee, and I get why, as a manager, he kind of lost faith in me. And I don't think as a player, I think it was more as it's my strength of mentality.
Well, that's what you thought it was, but you're saying it was actually the changing diet thing.
Yeah, it's something completely different to that. Right. But yeah, I don't. As I say, we didn't have a falling out like a blazing row. But yeah. You hate as a player. There's no point in being a footballer. I'm not Winston Bogart at Chelsea. He's quite happy to sit there and pick up his wages. If you're not playing, then I was miserable. So.
You think you was on your way? Was you like preparing to leave the club?
Yeah, well, I almost wanted to leave to go and play football. If a manager's not going to pick you, then you may as well go somewhere else and play football. But yeah, I got back into the team eventually. I still, when I lived down in Sussex until 3 years ago when I moved here, I'd see Mark McGee around Brighton all the time. He was obviously manager at Brighton. He used to take his kids to his child, to the same swimming pool as I took my kids for swimming lessons. So our relationship's fine. I've had beers with Mark, since he left there since he left me as manager. So yeah, there's no ill will or anything like that. But yeah, it was definitely a falling out in terms of he'd lost faith in me as a footballer.
Right, and then Dennis Wise, Mark McGee leaves, Dennis Wise gets the job. Does Dennis Wise immediately then come to you and go, look, don't worry, I fancy you as a player.
Yes.
I'm going to move you centre back.
He genuinely did come to me and say, don't worry, I want you to play in the team. And at the time, it was I want you to play in the team as right back. And until Robbo got injured, that's where I played, and that's where he selected me most of the time. But yeah, Dennis was a very good manager. Obviously, he'd been a player himself and worked under very good managers. Dennis was great tactically. He obviously brought in Ray Wilkins as well. We had a bunch of good coaches behind the scenes, but Dennis was such a good manager. He'd take everybody aside and speak to them. So yeah, I was under no illusions that I was going anywhere. I didn't know I was going to be in the team playing, but I knew I was part of his plans. Even if I was subbed for a game, I knew I was still in his plans and I could be playing next game. So yeah, my time at Millwall then improved massively under Dennis, obviously because of the transition in terms of position, but also the new management. Dennis and Ray helped as well. And I think anybody who's watching knows that they were some of the best times for Millwall then as well. Dennis and Ray were great people, totally different personalities, but they worked really well together. And Ray was just a wonderful character to have about the dressing room. He was so. I remember the word he says. He'd always use the word effervescent, bubbly. He was just such a bubbly guy. He'd be the one in the dressing rooms dragging us out onto the training ground, half an hour before training and having circles and little games. Obviously, Ray was the best player in the circle.
Tony Warner said he still had a bit on the pitch as well.
Oh, he's still the best player by a country mile, yeah. He would... obviously, you'd practice set pieces against, so defensively you'd be practicing set pieces. And Ray would be the opposition corner kick taker and just pinging balls in. Dennis would be, go over there, Ray. We want an in-swinging corner, right-footed from over that side. So he'd trot over there and be just pinging these perfect in-swinging corners in. Defensively, you're heading balls away, just getting used to the trajectory of the ball and things like that. And then Dennis would be, yes, go over the other side. They have a left-footed player taking in-swinging corners from the other side. So instead of having Ray would just trot over there and just ping left-footed corners in-swinging. He was obviously so fucking talented as a player, and still he must have been 45, 46 then. His delivery with both feet and his just reading of games of football. You'd always want him on your team in five-a-side games because he was the best player, but by a country mile.
I'm just thinking as well what you said about Dennis Wise. Like, Dennis Wise, used to his man management was very good. And no disrespect to you, from what Mark McGee thought of you, mentally, Dennis Wise was a very aggressive sort of player. So to see the best in you and bring the best out in you, he's done a great job there, thinking of it in that terms.
Yeah, he certainly did. As I say, I knew from the minute he came in as a manager, obviously initially he was player manager, I knew that he had full belief in me.
Yeah.
I like to think I was pretty aggressive on the pitch, and he was always somebody who didn't try and temper that. Like if you got sent off, if it was for something silly, like you've punched somebody or elbowed someone, he'd be pissed off, obviously. But if you got sent off or booked for challenges, for tackles, being, full-blooded and wholehearted, he'd be fine with that. How could he not be when you see how he is?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that rubbed off on us as well. You've got people like Dennis and Muscat in the team. You can't help but try and meet their aggression levels, I guess, as well, without going over the top. Obviously, Muscat happens to go over the top every now and again, over the top of the ball. It was good to have those guys in and around the dressing room. Like I remember playing against Kevin Muscat when he was at Wolves, and you'd hate playing against him because he was genuinely pretty nasty on the pitch. So when you're playing alongside him and he's in the dressing room, you're quite happy to put your arm around him and say, "Yep, come on then, let's get going." And we had an aggressive team. You've got, and in a good sense, you've got Dennis, you've got Kevin, you've got Dave Livermore. People like that. We've got, Paul Moody. I know that was earlier on. You've got people like Danny Dickio. You just got we had an aggressive, but as I mean in a good sense, aggressive.
Yeah. Then obviously you end up becoming centre half, and eventually you captain us in the cup final. But before we get to the final, we'll talk about the run we went on to get there. Darren Ward, what's he like? The Peckham Beckham. He used to have some outrageous haircuts. You was obviously Shaggy, and he was the Peckham Beckham. What did you make of that when you got your first realised? Was you Shaggy at previous clubs, or was you?
No, that came about at Millwall. Yeah, I let the hair go slightly at Millwall, but that's fine. But Darren was a great player to play alongside, and I think we had very differing personalities on the pitch and off the pitch, but I think they're chalk and cheese, I guess, but they came together very, very well. We understood each other. I think we understood the intricacies of our personalities and how we played. That was, I think, some of the best games I'd played in my whole career were alongside Darren. I knew exactly where he would be, and he knew exactly where I would be, and that was obviously two centre halves. It's a big part of any team, and that FA Cup final run, as you mentioned, was just fantastic. Obviously, we're a little lucky we don't play a Premier League team until the cup final, but as the old cliche goes, you can only beat what's put in front of you.
Yeah, exactly.
I think any team who goes back and forth to Telford about 5 times and before the game's even played, mentally strong enough to go and play on a quagmire and a sandpit, at Telford, a sandpit up at Tranmere in the quarterfinals. We overcame not quite adversity, but it was a really long. It felt like a long cup run just because of all those postponements at Telford. It felt like we had some long trips as well. So, yeah.
What about Old Trafford, the semi-final?
That's certainly the game. Of course, I remember the FA Cup final, but you lose a game. That's not why you'd play sport to lose. So certainly the semi-finals, the game that I remember, with the fondest of memories. It was just a great day out. And I mean a great day out for the supporters rather than the players. My parents were there. I had a lot of friends and family there. It was just amazing to be at Old Trafford. And it was amazing to know that you've only got to beat Sunderland to be playing Man United or Arsenal in the final.
Did you captain us their semi-final?
I don't think I did.
No, I don't think
Kevin Muscat did. I can't say my memory's too many concussions. My memory's not
I
great.
thought it was bad. I didn't remember, but you played the game you don't remember.
Bad heart, bad concussions. Yeah, I think Kevin captured us at Sunderland, or maybe Chopper did, but obviously Kevin suffered the really bad injury.
That's right, yeah.
At Old Trafford against Sunderland. I think he got, I can't remember. It's a dislocated kneecap and broken leg, but it was horrific at the time. And seeing him, however wonderful it was in the dressing room at Old Trafford, champagne everywhere and stuff, knowing you're you're going to the FA Cup final, seeing Kevin like laying in that dressing room he was in such serious pain as anybody would be, with like a dislocated kneecap and a snapped shin bone. But he was still like part of the celebrations as much as was possible. But yeah, I guess the celebrations were tempered a little bit because he was such a good such a good guy. Whatever anybody thinks of him on the pitch, he's a fucking lunatic. He's an absolute animal on the pitch, but off it, he's genuinely a really, really good individual, kind-hearted person. Looked after a lot of the young lads. On nights out, would take care of bills and stuff like that. And I don't mean in an arrogant, there's my black Amex card or anything like that. He would just carefully go to the bar, pay the bill, and come away. And then the younger lads would be like, "Who's paid the bill?" And he didn't make a big show of it.
Yeah.
He had that ability to do it, and it was, he was a good, kind-hearted person. So to see one of your teammates, somebody that you spent a lot of good times with, to see him so like distraught, and in so much pain, it took a little bit of the shine off that day. But believe you me, we went back to the hotel, and Theo was there. I think there's politicians were there. We had a great party, and rightly so. It's very rare that a championship team gets to the FA Cup final. I think we're fully deserving of it. I think Sunderland at times were a better team against us, but we held pretty strong, and we defended very resolutely. But yeah, always remember Cahill's goal and his celebration of running the length of the pitch to celebrate supporters in the corner and things like that. So yeah, it was a truly like marvellous spectacle occasion, as well as the game, obviously, but just the occasion, seeing so many, old Millwall fans. I don't mean old in age. I just mean guys and girls who've been supporting the club for so many decades, being able to go to Old Trafford and celebrate with us, and not to Wembley, getting to the Millennium Stadium. So yeah, it was just a terrific spectacle. The whole occasion was truly awesome.
Brilliant. So we beat Sunderland twice that season anyway in the league, so it would have been an absolute killer if they had beat us there, but they didn't. Then obviously later on in the season, the FA Cup final. Do you remember getting the nod for captain, or had you already been captain in the side until that point?
I think I captained the team on a few games up till then. I don't say Dennis and Neil had a falling out, but certainly the captaincy got taken away from Neil. I can't remember exactly why, and sort of not quite, it's none of my business, but it felt a little weird being the captain when Neil had captained the team for I think large parts of the season. Look, it's not my choice. I'm not going to turn it down. I'm not going to say no, I don't want to be captain. I feel massively privileged to captain Millwall, full stop, whether it be away at Prenton Park, Game Meadow if you're playing against Shrewsbury, wherever it may be. So it's a huge privilege being able to wear captain's armband of a club like Millwall, and then being able to walk your team out at the Millennium Stadium. It doesn't, certainly for me, it was never going to get any better than that. So yeah, it was again, that day was great, but I feel it was a better day than it was performance on the pitch. Obviously, you're playing a much superiorly talented team in Man United, and we had so many injuries, so many suspensions. It felt
Did you have to mark Ruud van Nistelrooy?
Van Nistelrooy was centre forward. Obviously, you got Ronaldo on the other side, Giggs the other side. Keane, Scholes, just walking out alongside Keane and Alex Ferguson. It felt a bit surreal, and we had such a depleted side. It really did feel almost like a Millwall reserve side. I can't remember all the suspensions, but obviously Muzzy was injured.
Danny Ditcho was out, suspended, I think. Yeah.
Out. Tony Warner was either in, I think, may have been injured.
Yeah, he was.
Dennis Wise shouldn't really have played. He had about 25 painkilling injections in his calf before the game. It would have been just too big a shock. Like, it wouldn't even have been Wimbledon against Liverpool in 1988. It would have been a bigger shock than that, just because of not only it was Millwall, but what a bad side we had on the day in comparison to the side that we'd had 3 months ago. The season almost got the better of us. The length of the season, the number of games we played got the better of us. And then obviously that took its toll on the FA Cup final game itself. But then on the season as a whole just got too big for us. Not too big, too long for us, because we just didn't have a strong enough squad. In terms of numbers, really. Not in terms of ability, in terms of numbers.
So now you're the skipper. You skippered the side there. Have you gone from, obviously, I said you've come from as a right back to a very good, strong central defensive player. Was you quite vocal by this point? Was you always vocal, or was that sort of something that's developed as well?
I think that certainly when I started out as a young pro at Wycombe, I was John Williams, the flying postman from Swansea, who I played with at Wycombe. He called me the mute because I didn't talk when I started. Bearing in mind I'd come from university, here in the States, a completely different type of atmosphere to professional football. I hadn't had the growth that normal players do when they're at a club from 16 and you come through the academy and you're a scholar and things like that. You get to learn what being a professional footballer is. I had to learn on the job. I was 21 and a half when I joined Wycombe. So I'd missed out on 5 or 6 years of learning how to become a professional footballer. Forget playing. I just mean the camaraderie in the dressing room. It was
being around it.
It was alien to me. It was totally alien. I was this posh twat who, had come from university. John Gregory at Wycombe called me a student wanker and was telling me to get and things like that. I was like, wow. It was welcome to professional football. So talking about being vocal, it took me a good number of years to
to develop that,
come out of my shell, maybe as a player and as a sort of personality in the dressing room. As I say, it's just night and day. Being at university, studying all day, playing football at night for my college team over here, and then being thrown into a dressing room full of, players who've been professional footballers for their whole careers. It was quite it was a real eye opener. So I didn't become really vocal, I guess, till my time at Millwall. I'd been at Wycombe twice, at Fulham once as a player. Yeah, well, I guess my career developed late just because I joined late.
Started late, yeah. Something you touched on there, and that is something I've got down in my notes. Obviously, the following season, following the FA Cup final, we get into Europe. We'll talk about that, but also what my question to you was, and it sounds like you've already sort of answered it in a way. Do you think that, in hindsight, if we hadn't have had the distractions of the FA Cup, if we hadn't have had the distractions of Europe the season after, we could have got promoted? Because we wouldn't change those times we had as fans. Don't get me wrong, and I'm sure you wouldn't as players. But do you think that definitely played a part in us falling away in the league?
Yeah, huge part. Yeah, there's no taking away from it. We didn't have the benefit of having a strong enough squad. Whether that's down to there wasn't enough investment. I know Dennis definitely wanted more players to come in, and they didn't come in. The FA Cup run, as you say, as wonderful as it was, and I wouldn't change that for a second, that categorically denied us promotion. There's no two ways about it. Not just the extra games, but the injuries we picked up during those games, the suspensions we had. I genuinely think not just our starting 11, but our 1 to 14, 15 was as good as any in the division, certainly enough to get us promoted anyway. Our problem was then sort of 14 to 20 or 15 to 22 in the squad. What wasn't good enough. So when we needed those players, we didn't have them. We didn't have them at our disposal. You're then relying on kids to come in and do a job, whether it be in an FA Cup final or in getting us promoted from, you know, how hard, and the supporters know how hard it is to get out of the Championship. Without the FA Cup final, and certainly with a little bit more investment, we would have got promoted. So yes, that's a little not annoying or anything like that, but certainly I think you as a supporter, Dan, and supporters around the world, and certainly back home in London, they're bright enough to know that FA Cup final run certainly hurt the promotion push. I don't think just because we focused our minds on a semi-final or a final, but as I say, just the culmination of games and injuries, allied with just not having enough players. And I remember Dennis and Ray talking about the fact that for us to get promoted with the cup run, we needed more players, and we just didn't get that help.
Yeah. It's such a shame because it seemed really to be moving. I mean, Dennis Wise was good for the club. He was very good for you personally as well. And he comes in, you know, McGee did well, but then again, he seems to give us times that no one else ever has since, or probably will. FA Cup final, following year Europe, end of that season, bang, he leaves the club.
Yeah, as I say, and that had been growing because of the lack of investment, the lack of players coming in. I think, was it that summer that Theo left as well, maybe? Yeah. Or certainly it was started. There were those rumours that were coming on board, us as players. They always say, you know, keep your mind on the pitch, but anything that's going on behind the scenes, you're fully aware of. Dennis saw the writing on the wall. Dennis knew what was coming. He saw that in that FA Cup, that run we had, he saw that with no investment, he knew that there was no investment coming. He saw that Theo was leaving, and Dennis was a winner. He only wanted to be in charge of a team that could win games, that could get promoted. The minute he saw that wasn't going to happen, he was out the door. And I think fair play to him. Like he really loved his time at Millwall, but he wanted to have the ability to do his job. And to do your job as a manager, you need the influx of players, you need the investment. And he only wanted to be in charge of a team that could win. He knew that he wasn't being given those players, so he wasn't going to sit around and pick up his money. He walked out the door, and I like people who are happy to do that. He could easily have sat there and picked up his money, but he didn't want to. He didn't want to be in charge of a team that wasn't going to be as successful as he wanted. And I think that's really does stem to the back end of the season before, when he asked for recruits to help us get promoted into the Premier League, and they didn't come. And I think that genuinely hurt him deep down. I think that upset him. And yeah, I hold him. And I don't think any fan can hold any ill will against him for walking out the door because he didn't get given what he required. Yeah. I know a manager wants millions of money being invested. I don't think he was unrealistic, Dennis. I think he just wanted a few extra bodies. The minute he saw that wasn't coming down, he was out.
Yeah, and the thing is, well, I think just the money wasn't there. The money wasn't there, and people started to leave the club. Yeah. Ives had left the club. Stephen Reid already gone. And then obviously your defensive partner, Darren Moore, leaves the club as well. What was you thinking at this point? Wise, great manager for you. Darren Moore, great central defensive partner for you. And fuck me, I'm sitting on my own. What's happened here?
Yeah, you could see what was coming. I think Dennis certainly saw what was coming. As you say, the better players were leaving. Cahill had already left. Cahill, Ives, Lucas Neal had left. Reedy had left. Darren had left. That's the nucleus of one hell of a good Championship team. A team, if you put another good 5-6 bodies with them, that will get promoted from the Championship. So to lose them and be part of that team at Millwall was really, it was hard because, as I say, as Dennis wanted to be a manager that could win games, you only want to be a player that can win games. And we had a team that wasn't good enough to win games of football. Forget get promoted from the Championship. It wasn't good enough to keep us in the Championship, and I think we all knew that was coming, and it was a real shame to see such a good side broken up so swiftly. Like you get to the FA Cup final, and you just see the team completely decimated. The manager walks away, and I know we spoke off camera beforehand, Dan. That was, for me, the beginning of the end of a very good period for Millwall, and also, unfortunately, the start of a period of 2, 3, 4 seasons of really bad times for Millwall fans and for Millwall teams, because the team just wasn't being run properly off the pitch.
Do you think that if we could have kept that team together for one more year with no distractions of an FA Cup run or a European run, do you think with Wisey at the helm it could have happened?
It would have happened. I think it was a side good enough to get promoted to the Premier League, Premiership as it probably was back then. Whether that's a side that can stay in that league is another question. But without a shadow of a doubt, with all those names I've mentioned, and with Wisey and Ray at the helm, people who know how to get promotions, know how to win games in the Premier League or the Premiership as it was then, it would have got promoted, Dan. The team would have got promoted, and that's always been like a bugbear of mine, knowing that with just a little bit extra investment, there could have been some even greater times at Millwall, and it just went the completely opposite way.
Well, that's what I was going to say. After that, all hell breaks loose. Steve Claridge comes in for about 30 days. Colin Lee, Dave Tuttle, and we end up. You stayed and saw it out, but we ended up getting relegated that season. Did that, as a player, for someone who the club took on from Wickham and helped you develop as a player to the next level, helped you achieve brilliant things in your career, that must have hurt to see it get to there, and then by the time you've left, it's gone right back to where it started, or even worse off. Yeah,
and I felt almost as a player that's how I'd gone. I started out, and jokingly, as I came in as Paul Ifill'S chauffeur. Got to the point of being in a side that was worthy enough of getting to an FA Cup final, playing in Europe, playing with such good players like Muzzy, like Dennis Wise, like Ives, Reedy, Warner, Wardy, could just go on and on and on with such great players, Deitch, Barry Hales, and to see the team go from such wonderful leadership with Theo, wonderful squad built up. So yeah, my career really peaked with the FA Cup final. I just felt the downward trajectory was like a ski jump. It was so demoralising as a player to be part of a team, obviously that gets relegated, but that basically just wasn't good enough, and we all knew it. And that's when I decided to leave the club. And I envisaged being at Millwall for my whole career. Because as I say, I started late. I joined Millwall in 2000, so I was 26. So 10 years down the line, I'd be 36. I honestly envisaged being at Millwall for a decade. I enjoyed my time there so much. But that season and that lack of leadership on and off the pitch was so demoralising that I just genuinely couldn't take it. And I remember,
it's annoying, wasn't it? It's just like a load of good work undone.
But undone.
Annoying.
I get if it can get undone over 5 or 6 years, but to be undone in 5 or 6 months is totally demoralising. I remember sitting down. I sat out the last 2 games of that season because I was so pissed off. I think Macca had taken over as temporary or caretaker boss for the last few games of the season. He asked, and this is the first time in my life, the only time in my life, that somebody asked me if I wanted to play, and I said no. I'm genuinely done with this season and done with this club and how it's been run into the ground. And I sat out the last 2 games of the season. I probably regret that a bit now. It was probably a bit petulant, but I genuinely was at the end of my tether with not with the football club per se, but with the way it was being run. And I sat down, I remember this, before the last game of the season, I sat down with one of the directors in the home dugout before the game. I wasn't playing, obviously. Sat in the dugout while the team was warming up. And the director said to me, I will give you whatever you want to stay at Millwall. We need people like you to be at the football club. and I don't think I've ever told anybody this. He said, we'll give you, what do you want? What money do you want to stay here? And I said, there is not enough money in the world to make me stay here right now. Jesus. Because of the way this club is being run. Mm-hmm. I want to be playing in the Championship or higher. And so if a club comes in and offers me Championship or higher football, then I'm going to leave, because, as you said, because I've been part of this wonderful football club and wonderful team. And between you guys running it, bad leadership, I said, you've ground this great club, great team that we had into the ground. I said, so I'm off. I'm done with it. And I genuinely meant that. I didn't even throw figures at him. He didn't throw figures at me. I just said, no, not enough money in the world to make me want to stay here. Football would never been about money for me. Of course, earning money is great, wonderful to have money and be able to pay the mortgage and buy a nice car or whatever you want to spend your money on. But not to the extent, not to the detriment of my career, and not to going down to League One and being part of a team that was going to struggle probably in League One as well, and that had been just so badly run from a team that was.
The thing. I think people will realise you wasn't saying that, there is no amount of money. You wasn't saying that because you didn't care. It's because you genuinely did care about the club. Was the reason you were saying those things. Because I can tell from talking to you, it's actually hurt you. Talking about it.
Yeah, that season was just so incredibly difficult. Look, not that playing football was ever difficult, but just being part of a team that wasn't good enough. As I say, any footballer just wants to play to win. If you win games of football, the money comes. If you play well, you win games. The money comes. It's going to come if you do well. So that season, it just hurt me. It hurt my own personal career, but it just hurt me mentally as well to see how badly it had been run. And as I say, I envisaged being at Millwall for the rest of my career. Walking out 12 months before as captain at an FA Cup final. Just missing out on promotion to the Premiership as it was then, Premier League now. There's no way I was going to leave such a great club. But then, so I know we're going back over it a bit, but just to see every player that we had sold, the best chairman that Millwall had probably ever had in Theo leave, one of the best managers it had ever had in Dennis leave. The fans knew it. The fans stayed away. The same, and you can't blame them, and then it's like kind of ever decreasing circles, isn't it? If the fans don't turn up, you don't get the money to spend on players and things like that. It was just really was, as I say, it's thanks for bringing it up, Dan. But I'm now needing another therapy session after this.
So, well, listen, mate, I was going to say plenty of highs, a few lows thrown in. If you had to pick one standout memory for you from your time at the club, what do you think it would be?
Just joining the club. Forget that first day, the Wrexham game and all the travelling. Just being part of the Millwall team that season and learning what a great bunch of lads they were, learning what good leadership there was with Theo and the directors there. So I know that's copping out a bit, but just genuinely being part of a great football club and a great bunch of players and players that I still, and fans as well, who I still go for drinks with, still talk to, likes of Chauffeur and Ifill'S and Tony Warner, and could go on, Robbie Ryan, Sads, Joe Dolan, who I just spoke to just a couple of days ago. Just being part of a,
special bunch.
One big, happy family. I know that, again, a bit of a cliche, but it really was. Just the fact that I was lucky enough to be part of that Millwall team, that's good enough for me. We had so many highs, but just joining, just a great bunch of lads.
Yes, it was a special time at the club, mate. And you was a great player for us. You left eventually for Crystal Palace. So you left before Nigel Spack was appointed. You actually decided you was leaving.
I decided I was leaving.
Why Palace though, Matty? Why Palace?
I know. And look, believe you me, I know. I know how hard that is for Millwall fans. And as a Millwall player, I obviously had to think long and hard about that. But they were one of the only clubs that came in. They were a Championship club.
Wouldn't have to move house either, I suppose, would you?
I was just about to say, geographically, it was perfect. I'd lived down in Burgess Hill in Sussex, as I said, for my pretty much my whole career. So to not move house, to have kids who were at school and obviously getting older and older by the day, and not kids who were at creche or whatever, so it'd be simple to move. Kids who were at senior school or kids who were well into their junior school education. It was, although the team itself wasn't a perfect fit, obviously being major rivals of Mill, it was a perfect fit in terms of geographically and also for my career, being able to stay in the Championship. Look, if I didn't have to do that to Millwall fans and leave for Palace, of course I wouldn't have done, but I had to do it for myself. And you've got
to do what's right. I think a lot of people are quick to forget that football is still a job, and you've got to look after your family. You've got to look after yourself and your family. What's right? So, but mate, listen, it's held no bearings. So many people were excited you was coming on tonight.
I'm glad, as we've spoken here for an hour and a quarter. We spoke for 15 minutes off camera as well. I'm sure we'll speak after this as well. I genuinely had, the best times of my career at Millwall. So, and some of the best friends in football are from Millwall Football Club, and that's not just the players. It's fans I've met over the years and still meet. Even here in New York, I've met Millwall fans over here. We'll go and watch Millwall games with fans over here. So yeah, I've had some great times. And look, yes, forgive me for the Palace thing, but as you said, I'm not going to sit here and say I wish I hadn't done it, because it was what I needed to do for myself and for the family and for my career as well. And yeah, hopefully people can see as I sit here and that genuinely, if Millwall had been run properly, I wouldn't have left Millwall. I can't be blamed for the terrible way the club was run for 12 months. As we've said, we hit a peak and then hit a trough within the space of a devastating trough within the space of 12 months. And for any fan or for all the Millwall fans out there who were part of that season, they know how demoralising it was as a fan. So if you can imagine being on the pitch and being, almost a spokesperson for Millwall Football Club out there as the players, which you almost are. That's how fans around the world see it. The players are the ones who speak up for the club in a way. And yeah, we didn't have the ability on the pitch. So yeah, it was a sad way to leave the club, but it was something that had to be done. And luckily, Millwall's got itself back. It took a good few years to get promotion, and it's great to see two very good friends in Chauffeur and Livers. I know they've since left, but to see them bring in some really good times and some really, I think it's very apt that Chauffeur and Livers got Millwall back to some really good cup runs and to some really high points in the Championship. I think it's quite a nice circle to see that coming back.
Well, mate, listen, I say like a few tough times, but some very good ones as well. When the fans were buzzing when I said you was coming on tonight. So thanks for joining us, mate. Really appreciate it.
No problem at all. And yes, we ended with a bit of a bad point, but look, there was way many more good times that outweighed the bad. So yeah, I had a fantastic time, and I always appreciate whether it's fans writing to me on Twitter, inviting me for a beer when they're over in New York and things like that. So yeah, it's the love and support is fully reciprocated from me to Millwall fans. That's for sure.
Brilliant, top man, mate. Thanks a lot.
No worries at all.